What's going on YouTube? It's J Rich back again. We are now at part 3 of our Back to Basics series in CB for beginners. I appreciate y'all being here. I appreciate y'all watching and everything. Before we get into the video, go on ahead and hit that subscribe right down in the corner. As always, like, share, hit the notifications, leave a comment down below so that I know you want to see more of this content, as many of you have already done and have thanked me for the basic terminology and helping the new guy to understand CB antennas, coax, radios, and so on and so forth. So today, in my pickup truck, we are going to install this Cobra 29, a cheap basic external speaker, this little wheel mag mount antenna. We will also tune the antenna using this external SWR meter. And we're going to go over why you always use an external meter versus trusting the meter on the radio. Now you can pick up a cheap SWR meter like this for 20 to 30 bucks on Amazon or at a local truck stop. Or if you're really going to get serious and get into it, you can get a higher price unit like this that a lot of CB shops, they still use to tune with this. And as always, watch to the end of the video or you may be missing something. So let's get after it. All right, first off, let's go ahead and unpackage this little wheel Wilson mag mount antenna, see what comes in the package. So in the package of the Wilson mag mount little wheel antenna, you get a 36-inch whip, or some people call it a stinger. You also get a Allen key. You get the coil with the magnet and the coax. With the Allen key, there is a set screw right here where you are going to be able to move that whip up and down to adjust the SWR. Now, if you need to make this antenna lower, as we will talk about in the tuning part of this video, you will simply trim off a little at a time, like a 1/4 inch at a time, to get this antenna right where it needs to be. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm not going to be doing a permanent install because I have future videos coming up where we're going to change antennas, we're going to change radios, we're going to do a few different things. So keep in mind, this is going to be just a basic install to help guide you along the way. Now, without further ado, let's gather up all this stuff, get out to my daily driver, get this installed, and get it tuned for you. Okay, so for the purposes of this video, I'm simply going to run this down in the door jamb. Now, you do not want to just put it in here, your coax, and pinch it in the door itself. What you could do is damage the internal of the coax by breaking the conductor that runs down the center or the insulation that separates the conductor from the grounding shield. So that can adversely affect. Now, whether you're installing in a back door like my truck or a hatch or a trunk, what I like to do, instead of just running it in through at the top where you can get water leak to come through, I will run the coax down, all the way down to where the break is in the weather stripping. And what you can do is, once you get this piece peeled up and you get the weather strip out, you can trim just a little bit off, and then once your coax comes around and down, you will simply come up through that and then under your little kick plate right here, and that'll help prevent the door from smashing the coax. It'll help to keep water leaks down because you'll be at the bottom. So that's one tip for running the coax. Next, with the coax, the end is not removable on this Wilson coax. If you watched my previous video where you saw that the Striker coax, you could take the end off. So hopefully before you're at this point, you realize where you need to mount the antenna and where you need to run the coax. Because if you go through a grommet or a hole in the body, this may not fit. You may actually create a bigger hole than what you need. But if that's the case and you have to do that, make sure you seal the hole back up so you don't get water leak into the vehicle. Okay, now that our CB is installed, this, like I said, this is temporary. The speaker for the CB is on the bottom side against the console. So that's why we put an external speaker, just a little cheap thing. And we are getting static, as usual. Now your microphone, what do you do with your microphone? It's just flopping around here. Some radios, they have a little pin thing, a 3-prong thing on the side to be able to clip that microphone onto. Mine does not have that. Now what you can do is pick up one of these at the local truck stop, and this has double-sided tape on the back of it. So you could come up here and, stick it somewhere, give or take. Find you somewhere to stick it, put it on the side of the console right there, and you'll be able to clip your microphone into it. But we're not going to use that right now. Like I said, this is a temporary install for you. All right, guys, now that we have the antenna on the truck and the CB is mounted inside the truck, now we need to get to tuning the antenna to make sure that our SWRs are good. If the SWR is too high, then you will burn up your radio. But first, I need to get away from here. This is not the ideal spot to tune your antenna. You've got all these trees. Above me, there are power lines. And then you got my house right there. You need to be in an open area, away from buildings, say 100 feet, away from anything. Right here's not the ideal spot. So let's drive on up the road and see if we can find us an open spot. So, all right, YouTube, here we are. We are out here in some wide open spaces. This happens to be a school parking lot, which is a very good spot. It's way up on top of a hill. So hopefully once the antenna's tuned in, we can get out a little farther. Hopefully we'll be able to reach the interstate and hear a little bit, but I'm not going to hold my breath on it because we are a little far away for this antenna system to actually get that far out. All right, so on to the tuning portion, and what we're going to do is we're going to start by tuning with the radio and the meter itself, and then we're going to hook up the external meter and see how the readings are different. So what you're mainly looking at, for starters, is channel 40 and then channel 1. So let's start on channel 1. What we'll do is we'll flip this switch to Calibrate, okay? And what we're looking at is right there where it says CAL. Okay, we're going to try and do it one-handed. Bear with me. We're going to key up the microphone. Then we're going to get that right, that needle, right in. There's an arrow right there. Let off of it. Go up to SWR. Key up again. And we're very, very low on channel 1. Now, let's go back to Calibrate, channel 40. Let's key up the microphone, and we are right in the area where we want to be. Switch up to SWR, key up again, and we're pretty high up around a 2. Now, on the back of your SWR meter, or depending on the meter, it could go in the side or whatever, your out is for your antenna. The in is for the radio. Or it may say trans and ant, which is antenna, and your transmitter. Okay, here we are, guys. We're back. We are on channel 40. And what we're going to do is we are going to be looking at the second line, which is your SWR. And we are going to go to SWR set. We are going to, let's see, run our dial back. This is our Calibrate knob here. You'll see the needle when I key up. We are going to run that needle all the way around to SWR set. and then we will switch the knob to SWR. Our reading is down to about 1.2. Now, if you remember, on channel 40 on the radio's meter, we were all the way up to a 2. And here we are at 1.2, which 1.2 is very good. It's very, very acceptable. Now let's go to channel 1. Same thing. We're going to go to SWR set, key the mic for the needle, put that on SWR set right there. The switch. Now we are down to 1.5 on channel 1. And if you will remember that on channel 1, we were way down about 1.1 or 1.2. So that's why you always use an external meter when you are setting your SWRs. Because really, truthfully, right now, we could leave this antenna alone and it would be good. You're at a 1.2 and a 1.5. That is not bad at all. All right, so now as you see, our SWR, I just rechecked it off camera. We're at 1.1 on channel 40, and we're at 1.4 on channel 1. Now, what does that mean? Where do you go from here? So your SWR is higher on channel 1, means your antenna is too short. You need to make that antenna taller. And luckily, we have room to do that, because when I set the antenna in the coil of the magnet, I set it all the way down. So now we have plenty of adjustment to go up. So if your SWR is higher on channel 1, your antenna is too short. Make that antenna longer. If our SWR was higher on channel 40, we need to make the antenna shorter. Bring that antenna down a little bit. Now, with me setting the antenna all the way down in the base, if that reading was true where 40 was higher, then we would have to start cutting the antenna a 1/4 inch at a time. You can always take it off. You can't put it back. So be careful when you're doing that. So I'm going to step out. We're going to raise the antenna up just a little bit. We'll come back and see if we can't get these SWRs to match perfectly. All right, so now we've got our antenna. We get our Allen key here. I'm going to loosen this up just a little bit. I'm going to bring that antenna up just a little. Not a lot, just a little. Tighten that up. Now, if you do that as I just did, where I took the magnet off, make sure that you set the magnet exactly where you had it before, or we're going to have problems. Okay, so now we are back on channel 40. We got our SWR to the set position. We're going to key up. We're going to set that needle right on the set, and then flip the switch. Ooh, channel 40, now we're up to 1.5 on channel 40. Let's go to channel 1. Go to set. Get our needle right on the SWR set, and I can't barely see it. SWR set. Flip the switch to SWR. Oh, now our channel 1 is lower, down to 1.3. So I moved the antenna just a little too much. Let's go back out and redo it. And as you see, I did not move the antenna very much. But we're going to split that in half now. Okay, so here we are back to calibrating. We're on channel 1. Get that needle right on that SWR set. Flip the switch. We are down 1.4 on channel 1. Now channel 40. SWR set. Key the microphone. And once that needle gets to set, it's pretty finicky right there. Alright, switched our SWRs and we're down to 1.4. So now it's perfectly matched. Alright guys, so let me give you a little tip. When installing the power cable, I have got this ran to the amplifier for my stereo, which is under the seat. And pretty much power goes to the battery, and the negative goes to the amp as well, which goes to a seat bolt. So what we like to do is run the ground to a seat bolt, which is where it's at, instead of to the battery. If you run the ground to the battery, you could get noise from the alternator, electric fans, so on and so forth. Also, when plugging in your power, I always like to hook up the end of this to the power source first with this unplugged from the radio. Now, when you plug this in, make sure that the radio itself is turned off, and then plug this in, then turn the radio on. Because if you accidentally touch the positive and the negative, you can damage parts inside the radio, and it either won't come on or won't transmit, won't receive, something to that nature. Now, you also may be looking at this radio and say, that's a lot of knobs and switches. What do all these knobs and switches do? Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to leave a link in the description where I tell you what all these knobs and switches do on the Cobra 29 and on a radio that's a little more advanced like my Galaxy. So look down in the description below for a link to that video. All right, so you're still with me. That's a good thing. So now, sitting where I was sitting, I did not get a comeback on the radio. So I drove a little farther down the road, closer to the interstate, and I did get a comeback from about 3 miles away, which is about what I expected out of this particular system. Even though your radio is running a little more watts than some others, you know, you're held back by the antenna, this is the most basic antenna that you can get as far as I'm concerned. And the terrain makes a big difference. We have a lot of overhead power lines in this area, a lot of trees, a lot of hills. So even though you have a good radio and a mediocre antenna, don't expect to be getting out very far. That's just the way it is. I mean, really. Now, continue to watch this series, as next we are going to upgrade from the little wheel antenna to the Striker SRA 10 mag mount antenna, which should be a pretty decent upgrade over the little wheel. Also, at the end of this series, the little wheel antenna that I just installed on my truck, I'm going to package it back up, and I am going to give it away to one of my subscribers. There's nothing for you to do right now because the giveaway has not started. But 2 simple rules to this giveaway is that you must be in the 48 of the United States, and you must already be a subscriber when the giveaway starts. So if you have not subscribed, go on ahead and subscribe. Take your chances at winning a brand new antenna that was used on this video, and hopefully you will be a winner. As always, I very much appreciate you watching. Leave a comment down below if you have a question or you just have something to say. Go on ahead and watch a playlist while you're here. There are lots of other CB related videos, very informative on a lot of different topics. So go on ahead and check out the playlist. As always, subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'm Jay Rich. We'll see you next time.